Let's talk about Amy Winehouse.
Back to Black, which is a new film from Sam Taylor Johnson, who made her name as an artist, short filmmaker. She made Death Valley from that film Districted, which was all those kind of hardcore short films put together as kind of art project. Love You More, which is a great short film. She made Nowhere Boy, which was a biopic of a musician. She had a tough time on 50 Shades because she was, having to deal with the fact that the author was so all over the thing. Million Little Pieces, which didn't work for me. Anyway, this, I think, Back to Black, is her best feature since Nowhere Boy, which is a sort of perhaps damning with faint praise. Written by Matt Greenhalgh, who wrote Nowhere Boy. Before that, Control. He also wrote Film Stars Don't Die, Liverpool. It is the story of the sadly short life of Amy Winehouse. A story, of course, previously told in Asif Kapadia's doc, Amy. And I'm sorry, there's just no way of getting around this. In the same way that when One Love came out, we talked immediately about the documentary about Bob Marley, in the same way that when Dance with Somebody came out, we talked about the documentaries about Whitney Houston. These are all in sort of relatively recent past. Mm-hmm. When Asif Kapadia was on the show talking about his Amy doc, he described her songwriting as confessional with punchlines. I think it might have been her line, but I heard it from him. And I think his film really captured that. This doesn't. It lacks, its punchlines lack punch. What it does have is a, frankly, dynamite central turn from Marissa Abella, who Screen International named last year as a star of the future. And on the strength of this, it's really hard to, yes, not only does she get the mannerisms, the walk, the attitude, but she's uncannily on point with the voice. Now, I've read some people saying, well, the world is full of people who can do Amy Winehouse impressions. Is it? The world is full of people who do karaoke. It's not really the same. Anyway, here's a clip. This is actually the trailer. It's a clip of the trailer.
I don't write songs to be famous. I write songs because I don't know what I'd do if I didn't. Me in my head high, in my tears dry, get on without my guy. I want people to hear my voice and just forget their troubles. You gotta remember, I ain't no Spice Girl.
So you saw in that clip Leslie Manville as her Nan. It's a really, really good performance. Now, having said there is no way you can't compare it to the documentary, I'm just going to do this because you'll remember that Mitch Winehouse thought that the way in which he came across in Asif Kapadia's documentary was not flattering.
He's correct in that.
Yeah, he said that his words had been re-edited. I think he called the filmmakers a disgrace who were trying to portray me in the worst possible light. Here, Mitch is played by Eddie Marzan. And Eddie Marzan, if you've ever heard Eddie Marzan talking about his craft, his whole thing is he tries to find the good and the humanity in people. And in the way in which Mitch Winehouse is presented in this film, it is a much, much more sympathetic portrayal. Eddie Marzan is a very, very good actor, but he has this whole thing about not simplifying characters. And he basically does the best possible light as opposed to the worst possible light. Obviously, there are times when the drama has many chubby hum moments. I mean, the chubbiest of the chubby hum moments is when she says to him, "Do I need to go to rehab?" And he says, "I think you'll be all right." But it's like and Eddie Marzan gets away with it because he's a really brilliant actor. As Blake Field the Civil, you have Jack O'Connell, who is much more sympathetic than he comes across in the documentary. And watching the doc, you do wonder what on earth Amy Winehouse saw in this person who does not come out of the doc well at all. I mean, really, really doesn't. What the filmmaker said here was, in order to do this, you have to get some sense of why it was that Amy Winehouse was so devoted to him. And as played by Jack O'Connell, he has laddie charm. I mean, he's difficult and destructive and takes hard drugs, but he is, a sort of a more charming presence. And then you have Leslie Manville. So really what this comes down to is how much do you want to see a film that is a hard, warts and all version of a story that we think we know? How much do you want to see what they've effectively done, which is a fairy tale, which is a love story? And the way that the filmmakers have taken this is to say, look, it's a love story. And if it's going to be a love story, you have to understand why these people might fall in love, even when everything is completely falling apart. I think the film has problems. I mean, I'm a fan of, rock biopics. If we started throwing pop biopics out of the window because they get things factually wrong, well, we're going to start with the Buddy Holly story, which has got, it's left out a whole guitarist because of rights issues. And we're going to have to lose One Love because it takes all, it's just, that's not what they're there for. This is a fairy tale about a love story in a chaotic, destructive, toxic environment. Whether you think or not that Amy Winehouse's story should be told in that way, and the filmmakers have said, look, we're telling it from her version because she did, she was completely, in love with this guy. That's a decision which everybody's going to have to make individually. I have seen some, I think, foolish one-star reviews, which have just kind of taken objection to the thing. It's not a one-star film. It's a 3-star film. There are things in it, including its central performance, which is really, really good. And Sam Taylor Johnson does know how to make a movie. And I think, as I said, I think this is her best work since Nowhere Boy. I think it is problematic, but then, in the same way as what we just said about Civil War, if you want a film that's polemical and in-your-face polemical and says those people are Republicans and those people are Democrats, that's not what you're going to get. And I do think, this is one of the things in which there isn't a right answer. Which version of this story do you want? Do you want the Asif Kapadia, which I thought was actually a brilliant documentary, or do you want the fairy tale love story, which incidentally has got a lot of alcoholism, A-list drug taking, terrible things happening? It doesn't soft pedal those. So I don't know what the answer is. I just think that's what has to be said. This is the fairy tale version. And if that's what you want, then it does that quite well, largely because it's got a performance at the centre that can carry it.
And she sings her own.
Yeah, her voice is really kind of pretty good. I mean, again, it comes down to, I've read a couple of things. People said, people saying she doesn't sing like Amy. Gary Busey played and sang all his own Buddy Holly songs on the Buddy Holly story. In fact, there's an album of Gary Busey doing the thing. And it's a great performance. It's not quite Buddy Holly. It doesn't matter. It's when Joaquin Phoenix did Walk the Line. It's not quite Johnny Cash. It's his version of Johnny Cash. Reese Witherspoon. I think that a lot of the responses to this are powered by prejudice, and I understand the prejudice. People go, "This is the story that I want," and that's how dare you make that person who I think is terrible seem sympathetic?